going on there? Guys, we back with another one. And today, I want to talk about Stephen A. Smith and some of his recent comments in regards to his future with ESPN. And we look at Stephen A. Smith, and his name has been synonymous with the overall brand, and some people joke and they call it ESPN. Pretty much he is covering everything. You see Stephen A. comes on and he covers after games late at nights, having to be up sometimes for Get Up. He's on that show. He's on First Take. Then he walks over to Pat McAfee's show. He covers that. And for years, right, he had his radio show that used to come on ESPN TV. I'm not sure if he still does that, but Stephen A. overextends himself, works with ABC, covering NBA games, sideline report, and you name it, right? Countdown, you name it, Stephen A. is there. In recent years, we've seen ESPN acquire talents and platforms, and, they pay Troy Aikman so much money. They pay Pat McAfee so much money. And Pat McAfee's is more like, look, you could stream my content on your platform, for this. And he brought something that they had to make it worth his while. And he don't have to dress up in a suit or nothing. He comes in with his tank top. This is my brand. This is what it's going to be. And, because it streams simultaneous on YouTube. When you look at it, you could watch his show on YouTube or ESPN. So Stephen A. seeing that, I think it's changed his tune from this tweet we're about to talk about from a few years ago. Now, Stephen A. tweeted infamously now a couple years ago, I wake up every morning with two thoughts. Number one, how do I make my bosses more money? And number two, how do I get some of it? So now, seeing people make this money, I always thought Stephen A. was underpaid for the $10 million they were giving him, or whatever it was, the tens of millions he was making for all those jobs he was doing. We're going to take a look at what he said about Pat McAfee initially when he started his own show on YouTube. And then we're going to check out what he just said to Clay Travis recently about his future at ESPN and, how he's a business himself. Let's peep it.
I got word that Pat McAfee is coming to ESPN. And there's a lot of people that had a lot of questions about that. They heard the number being offered, reported by the New York Post and various other publications, 5 years, around $85 million. Of course, ESPN, as is its typical position, declined to comment on the figures in the deal, of course. The Pat McAfee show will be on ESPN's cable channel, on ESPN's free YouTube channel, and on its direct-to-consumer streaming service, ESPN+. The deal replaces the FanDuel sponsorship deal that Pat McAfee had, which was reportedly for 4 years and $120 million. FanDuel has not addressed the McAfee situation. Nor did they explain its view on how their deal with Pat McAfee dissolved. The deal, reportedly, averages about $17 million a year, according to the New York Post. ESPN will receive 230 fully produced shows a year that it can sell advertising against. And the one other point that the article made in the New York Post, it doesn't say who wrote it here, but in all likelihood, it was written by Andrew Marchand, who's usually on top of these matters. It says the athletes are now putting on the sports shows, evident with the McAfee agreement, similar to Peyton Manning's Omaha Productions. Peyton Manning does his Monday Night Football cast with his brother Eli, but he is also the lead producer on Peyton's Places, on a Peyton Places series, among other things. First of all, props to Peyton Manning. My show, The NBA is Stephen A. in Stephen A's World, is produced by my production company, Mr. SAS Productions, in concert with Omaha Productions, who obviously has a deal with ESPN. And Peyton Manning was on my show last night. I love working with the Mannings. I love them as people. I love them as professionals. They're just phenomenal. And I got a lot of love and respect for them. So let me throw that out there. That's number one. Number two, Pat McAfee. The reason why people were clamoring for me to chime in about him is because you have so many people that are looking at what he's getting paid. It's no secret that even though you don't know the numbers that I make, even though I'm sure a lot of you think you know, it's clearly more than I'm making. Stephen A., what do you have to say about that? Two things. Number one, I don't give a damn. He negotiated his deal a few weeks ago. I negotiated my deal a few years ago. Climate is different. Market is different. Different things are happening. The situation is not the same. That's only one of the reasons it's not the same. Now, I know there are those of you that will sit up there and say, that's BS. Disney announced months ago it's laying off 7,000 people. It's trying to make up for $5.5 billion in losses because of the pandemic, where parks were closed and movie theaters were closed and revenue was compromised and stuff like that. And anybody under the Disney umbrella has to pay a price. How could they go and they could make a deal like this? How many times have I told y'all, I'm a big boy. I've been to hell and back. This does not faze me at all.
A few moments later.
Is it important to you, based on the way the first time ended at ESPN, that you are the highest paid person on ESPN, given the work that you're doing for them? Do you think that should be the case?
Yes. I'm not stuttering. Hell yes. That's absolutely true. In the world of sports television, Clay Travis, I've been number one for 12 years. Come April 1st will mark 12 consecutive years I've been number one. Not only have I been number one every year, I've been number one every week and every month of every year for the last 12 years. Whether it's Pat McAfee, it's Mike Greenberg, it's Scott Van Pelt, it's Troy Aikman, it's Joe Buck, it's Kirk Herbstreit, the list goes on and on. I'm so honored to have the colleagues that I have, that I work with at ESPN every day. I look at other people in the business. I got a bunch of friends at FS1. You know what? Michael Irvin's there, Keyshawn, Skip, Richard Sherman, Rob Parker, Chris Broussard. The list goes on and on. Even LaShawn McCoy and Emmanuel Acho and Joy Taylor with her fabulous self. The list goes on and on and on. But let me tell you something. I'm the one that's been number one. And at the end of the day, it would be nice for one day for this man to stand before everyone and be like, I'm number one, and this says I'm number one. But I'm not just a talent. I'm a business. My contract's up in 18 months. And I can tell you right now, I'm not planning on staying. I hope to stay. I want to stay, but make no mistake about it. I will never get over how they let me go. Never. And as far as I'm concerned, they means everybody. It's not about ESPN. It's about corporate America. We see cuts taking place all the time. I built my own studio, okay? I came 7 figures out of my own pocket and built it, okay? I got my own YouTube channel. I'm not playing around. I'm going to make sure and exhaust myself doing everything that I can to have something to offer. That way, if they don't want it, somebody else will. And it absolutely positively breeds from what transpired to me in 2009. That will never, ever happen to an unprepared Stephen A. Smith again. I'm always going to be prepared to be gone.
Yeah, man. So when you hear Stephen A. Smith say that, I think about a few things, right? You know, a few months ago, he was saying that it doesn't bother him at all. He don't count the next man pockets, yada, yada, yada. And not that it bothers you. You could be happy for Pat McAfee, but look at the overall entity like, oh, you got that kind of money? You know, you got me doing this, that, and the third. I'm working way harder than this brother for your network. I kept the network afloat at times where you didn't have much content. I had to fill in on everybody's show, and you couldn't throw me a few more dollars for that. You know, try whack stuff like the baby Stephen A show and all that crap, just trying to stretch me thin pretty much. You know, work me until I can't physically work no more. You remember that time Stephen A. Smith got sick? I feel like that came from exhaustion that time when he was out, man. Honestly, his immune system wasn't able to handle the lack of rest he was getting, to be honest. So he could say it didn't affect him, but and I'm not saying it affected him negatively, but it did cause him to think like, okay, this is what they doing. And I remember how they let me go, like he said in 2009. So let me go ahead and start another platform, get the ball rolling on something else where if I lose ESPN, I already got the ball rolling on something else. And my thing with Stephen A is he's been big enough for long enough to have done this a long time ago. I don't know what type of non-compete stuff they had. You look at ESPN, anytime Stephen A. Smith say anything after any game, they were taking it off his social media page, throwing it up. You know, smaller YouTubers used to react to Stephen A.'s reactions and stuff like that, but ESPN was taking it, throwing it up, using his name, using all his content. You know, I know he won't getting paid for that, but they was sure enough getting paid for it. So I think, you know, looking at Stephen A. Smith, man, hopefully it works out for him. And, you know, I like his new setup a little bit better than I liked his initial setup. I like the interview with KG, stuff like that. And that's the thing Stephen A. Smith has been able to do. You know, he brought Magic Johnson the first take, interviewed him. You know, he's talked to several people. And so if his contract is up, you know, this is a way of letting ESPN know. Now, I know ESPN is going to throw a nice little dollar amount out there, but I hope Stephen A. don't take the bait at all. He need to take them to the cleaners. It needs to be an outrageous number. And I ain't talking about no, you know, it needs to be in the hundreds of millions and not just right over 100 either. I mean, if I'm Stephen A., for me to get up and do all, and I ain't doing all them jobs no more either. So the stipulations of my next contract, I do first take. Sometime I might get on, get up, or like stuff where I'm already in the building. I'm not going to cover not a nail game that I don't want to cover. You know, if I'm him, I'm not doing that no more. I did that for enough years. That's low level stuff. You get Malika and them out there to do that. I ain't doing that no more. I ain't doing NBA Countdown. I ain't doing none of it. You know, you have to pay me. So look, I say talk, look at Patrick Mahomes' deal and come back and talk to me. I'm for real. If I'm going to be doing all that work, Patrick Mahomes me with the money or we ain't got nothing to talk about. Because as outrageous as you may think that number is, that's as outrageous as I feel like all these jobs that you got me doing within the network is. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I would approach that if I'm Stephen A. Smith, but hopefully it works out for him, man. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Till next time. Peace.